What would you do if you suddenly had an extra $200 a month in your budget? A refinance can feel like giving yourself a raise, and there are 4 powerful ways to structure it depending on your goals. I call them the 4 Ls of refinancing. The first L is lower your payment. This is when you want the lowest monthly bill possible. The second is lower your cost, when you want savings without spending too much upfront. Third is lower your time to freedom. This is when you want to pay off your home faster. And the last L is lower your stress. This is when you want to use your home's equity to get some cash out. Each of these is a different type of refinance. And today I'll show you real examples of how they work so you can see which one fits your situation best. Before we dive into these 4 different types of refinancing, let's cover a couple basics first, because a lot of people don't even realize how a refinance works. When you refinance, you're essentially replacing your current mortgage with a new one. In most cases, you don't even need to bring cash to the closing table. The closing costs can usually be rolled right into the loan. On top of that, you often get to skip a payment, which can free up some short-term cash flow. And once the loan closes, your old lender refunds any money left over in the escrow account, so you'll actually get that money back. So a refinance isn't just about lowering the interest rate. There are a few built-in benefits that can give you extra flexibility right away. 2 of the most common reasons people refinance are to lower their monthly payment or to lower their upfront costs. And really, those are just 2 ends of the same spectrum. On one side, you can pay very little in fees and still get a lower rate than what you have today. That's the lower your cost approach. On the other side, you can pay more upfront to lower your rate and get the absolute lowest monthly payment. That's the lower your payment approach. Most of the time, people end up choosing something in between, where the upfront cost and the monthly savings balance out. I'm a visual person, so let's go ahead and show you an example of how this works. Let's start with a $500,000 loan at a 7% rate on a 30-year term. The principal and interest payment on this would be about $33.27 a month. When we refinance a loan, there are different ways to structure it depending on whether your priority is lowering your costs or lowering your payment long term. So here are 3 options side by side. Option 1, lower your cost. This has a little bit higher rate, but lower upfront costs. In this scenario, we're assuming a rate of 6.625. We're assuming costs of about $2,000. That new payment then would be about $32.02 a month. You'd have savings of $125 a month, and your break-even point would be about 16 months. Option 2 is a more balanced approach. It's a rate of 6.125, cost of about $8,000, a new payment of about $30.38. Savings would be about $288 a month, and you can see your break-even point now is a little bit longer at 28 months. Option 3 is the lowest payment option, so it has the lowest rate, but obviously the highest upfront costs. This shows a rate of 5.875, cost of about $13,000, a new payment of about $29.58 a month, savings of about $369, and a break-even point of about 35 months. So here's the trade-off. If you want to lower your upfront costs, you'll still save money each month, and your break-even is very quick. If you want to lower your payment the most, you'll spend more upfront, but your monthly bill drops the most. And again, often that middle ground offers a nice balance of savings and break-even timing. There are pros and cons to both the lower your cost and lower your payment approach, and we'll dive into these a little bit later in the video. So those first 2 approaches, lowering your costs or lowering your payment, are really about finding the right balance between what you spend upfront and what you save each month. But not everyone's goal is simply lowering. Some people are thinking, how do I get rid of this mortgage faster? And that's where this 3rd option comes into play. This is the lower your time to freedom scenario. Instead of focusing only on lowering your payment or just minimizing costs, this approach is about paying off your home faster and also building equity quicker. Here's an example. Let's say you have that same $500,000 loan at a 7% interest rate on a 30-year fixed loan. Let's assume your principal and interest is about $33.30 a month. If we refinance that into a 20-year loan at a 6.5% rate, your payment goes up slightly to about $37.20 a month. That's roughly about $390 more each month, but here's the payoff. You now cut 10 years off your mortgage. That's a savings of over $350,000 of interest across the life of the loan. And every dollar that you put towards your mortgage is building your equity at a much faster pace. This is again a great option for families who want financial freedom sooner, whether that's to retire earlier, reduce long-term interest costs, or just have the peace of mind of being debt-free. So the first 3 options are all about adjusting your payment, your upfront costs, or your loan term. But sometimes the goal isn't about lowering the loan itself. It's about using your home's equity to lower financial stress in other areas of your life. That's the 4th option, the lower your stress scenario. Here's an example. Let's say you have a $500,000 loan, but let's assume your home is worth about $650,000. That means you have about $150,000 in equity. If we do a cash out refinance, you might choose to pull out, say, $50,000 of that equity and roll it into a new loan. Your new loan balance would go up from $500,000 to $550,000, and depending on the rate, let's say 6.75, your payment might be a little higher, around $35.70 a month in this scenario, which compared to the $33.30 that you were paying before would be an increase of about $240 each month. But now you've got $50,000 that you can then use to pay off high interest credit card debt, perhaps to remodel your home, invest in another property, or cover big expenses without draining your savings. The key with a cash out refinance is making sure the money you take out is working for you, either by eliminating more expensive debt, improving your home's value, or investing in something that gives you a return. Now that we've covered the 4 Ls of refinancing, I want to mention one more option that sometimes makes more sense than just doing a full refinance, and that's what's called a home equity line of credit, or HELOC. A HELOC is a second loan on top of that first mortgage. So instead of refinancing that whole balance, you just borrow against the portion of equity you want to use. That way, if you already have a low rate on your main mortgage, you don't have to give it up. The upside to this is flexibility. It works more like a credit line. You can borrow, pay it down, borrow again, which makes it handy for things like home projects or expenses that come in stages. But there are trade-offs. HELOCs usually come with a higher interest rate than a traditional mortgage, and they are often adjustable, meaning your payment can change over time. That makes them better for short-term needs, not necessarily a long-term debt payoff strategy. So if your goal is quick access to equity without touching your first mortgage, a HELOC can be a great tool. But it's important to weigh the higher rate and variable payment against the stability of a traditional refinance. At the end of the day, refinancing is not just about chasing a lower rate. It's about choosing a strategy that lines up with your goals. We've gone over the 4 Ls of refinancing. Again, lower your payment means you're typically going to pay more upfront costs to get the lowest possible monthly bill. Lower your cost keeps upfront costs minimal while still lowering your payment. Lowering your time to freedom is where you shorten your loan term and save on interest. Lower your stress is when you tap into your equity to do a cash out refinance. And as a bonus, we talked about HELOCs, a flexible way to access equity without refinancing your entire mortgage, though they often come with higher adjustable rates. Every one of these options has pros and cons, which is why the best approach isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. My job is to run the numbers, show you the different options side by side, and help you pick the path that makes the most sense for your family. So if you're wondering which strategy might work best for you, reach out to me. There's no pressure. I'll just show you what it would look like in your situation, and you can decide if it's worth it. So those are the main strategies for refinancing, and hopefully that gives you a clear picture of how it could work in your situation. Now, I know when we talk about refinancing, the same questions typically always come up. So before we wrap up, let me quickly go through some of the most commonly frequently asked questions. Number 1, do I have to bring cash to closing on a refinance? Usually no. Most of the time, closing costs can be rolled into the loan, so you don't need to bring cash to closing out of pocket. Number 2, will I skip a payment if I refinance? Often, yes. You'll usually skip a payment during the transition, and you'll also get your old escrow account refunded to you within 30 days. How long does a new refinance usually take? Typically about 2 to 4 weeks, depending on appraisal, title, and other documentation. Number 4, how often can I refinance? Technically, you can refinance every 6 months, if it makes sense financially for you. Many people do this in a falling rate environment, and it would make the most sense if you do one of those minimal cost refinances, so you're not adding a large amount of closing costs every time to your loan balance. Number 5 is, do I have to requalify for a loan? Yes, unless we're doing an FHA or VA streamlined refinance. Those loans do not require a full approval. Number 6 is, do I need an appraisal? Not always. In many cases, we can actually waive the appraisal requirement, which keeps costs down and also speeds things up. Does refinancing my loan reset my loan term back to 30 years? The answer is not necessarily. You can actually choose your term. You can do a 30, a 20, a 15, even a 29 or 28 year loan. So you don't lose progress if you don't want to. But obviously, if you do one of those lower terms, your monthly savings ends up being less because you're taking it in the form of a reduced term. Number 8 is, what's the difference between a cash-out refinance and a HELOC? A cash-out refinance gives you one fixed loan with a predictable payment. A HELOC is a second line of credit or fixed-rate second mortgage that's flexible but usually comes with a little bit higher interest rates. Number 9 is, can I switch loan types when I'm refinancing? Yes, you can move from a conventional loan to an FHA loan, a fixed rate to an adjustable rate, basically whatever fits your goals and your situation, depending on what the market's offering at the time. Number 10 are, what are the risks of refinancing? The main risks are closing costs, extending your loan term if you reset back to 30 years, and the break-even timing. That's why it's so important to run the numbers before you make that decision. Number 11 is, should I include closing costs into the loan or pay them out of pocket? Both are possible to do, and it really depends on how much cash you have and what your long-term goals are. Here's an example on that. Let's say you have $10,000 in closing costs and you choose to roll those into the loan instead of paying those upfront when you come to closing. On a 30-year loan at, say, a 6% rate, that extra $10,000 ends up costing you about $60 a month. So the trade-off is simple. If you'd rather keep that cash in the bank, rolling costs into the loan usually makes sense. If you want the absolute lowest monthly payment, then paying those out of pocket makes the most sense. Number 12 is, do I have to use my current lender or can I refinance with a mortgage broker like you? You do not have to stay with your current lender. In fact, many times a mortgage broker like me can shop with multiple different lenders to get you better terms. Think of it like using an advisor instead of being locked into just one bank's options.